Welcome back to Persona 3! Last time, well, I said that we need to go to Tartarus tonight because we sort of need to make up time because Saturday is, well, we're not going to be able to go. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk to Akutsuki because I didn't notice he was here last time. Yeah, I guess we would feel more assured with more members. That's definitely thankful because otherwise we would have had a hard time. Having a full party is great. And speaking of which, we're heading out to Tartarus now. So, thankfully nobody is tired or sick, which is good. That was the main reason why I actually did this now, because if I waited another day, I mean, I could have gone tomorrow, but there's a chance that Gary still would have got tired studying, and I don't want to be taking on a boss tired. I also don't want to be taking on a boss ill-equipped, so while Akihiko's equipment I think is fine, I need to check some other people, because in my practice run I realized that Junpei did not exactly have the best armor he could equip, so I'm going to go ahead and put that camo shirt on him. 44 defense is nice. Rugged Getter is still the best shoes I've got for him. Also, the thing about it saying a manly pair of Getter for men, these are in fact male only. I found that out recently. I don't have any better accessories I could give him other than that silver necklace, but oh boy! Here's where things are gonna get interesting and kind of awkward. So, firstly, you know, Yukari, your current bow that shoots real arrows, it's a lot weaker than a toy bow that shoots suction cups. Full kids logic. Anyway. And also, your current armor that is perfectly covering of your whole body is defensively weaker than this. Armor that looks like a bikini, and the redundancy of resist wind. Yeah, the ability that you get on that is random, and I got the worst possible, well, not worst possible, but a fairly bad one for Yukari, because she already resists wind. But, anyway, the main reason I wanted to equip this is to show her reaction. Yeah. I love how your party members get mad at you if you put the revealing armor on them. It's just... yeah, really do find that hilarious. Yeah, you'll see why she's so mad about being put in that armor when you see her in battle, but yes, that is another one of those outfits that changes your, changes how you appear in battle, let's just say. But I love how the characters react to that. I mean, I always found it funny how in a lot of RPGs, you have that armor that looks really revealing and skimpy, and it actually has better defense and stuff. Oh boy, I ran into that trap with Fiora in the beginning of Xenoblade Chronicles. There was a swimsuit that I found for her that was the best armor she could have at the time. I had that on her, and well, let's just say that armor shows up in cutscenes, and it's a certain very dramatic cutscene that happened early in the game was completely ruined for me. I'm glad Xenoblade Chronicles X gives you the option to have fashion armor, as in what shows up in cutscenes being different to what you're actually wearing. But anyway, I digress. Now, for this next boss, firstly you want to make sure that you don't have a persona that's weak to fire equipped. So that would be Jack Frost or Valkyrie in my case. The problem here is that this next boss is weak to ice, and most personas that use ice tend to be weak to fire, like Jack Frost and Valkyrie. Now, Valkyrie has Mabufu, but like I said previously, that is kind of risky because, well, I'll talk about more when we get to the battle, but personally, I find the best persona for this fight is one that uses ice attacks, but is not actually ice-aligned itself, so isn't weak to fire. Basically, you just don't want a fire weakness, that's all. And of course, because we're going to be taking on a boss, I'm going to go ahead and save now. So, saving, and then see you at the fight. I just realized there's a request from Elizabeth that I could accept now, but I'll accept it when we come back down here, because I'm definitely going to be going back here after the boss for the free heal. So I've got your Mocha Shikome equipped, I put the bow on Yukari, put the armor on Yukari, speaking of which, we're about to see that in a few moments. And everything seems fine. I think we're ready for this fight. Yeah, so you can get a good look at what Yukari looks like there. Yeah, that's the high-cut armor. It works on any female party member, and it makes them look like that. But it is the best armor that she has available at this point, and that bow's the best bow she has available at this point, so Yukari's currently got the silly ensemble going. Anyway, here is the boss fight for this floor. I think we can win. As you can probably tell by that giant cup of fire swirling around them, they are fire-aligned. A
Guardian. I'm afraid you'll have to defeat it to proceed.
A Guardian, there's 3 of them. They're going to be using fire attacks. That's why I didn't want a Persona weak to fire, obviously. But because they're using fire attacks...
Roger. I'll attempt to analyze the enemy.
This is pretty much the first boss in the entire game where Junpei's fire resistance actually really comes in handy. You'll see why if these things are idiots and target him. It really does help out here. Speaking of which, I'm actually going to put Junpei on heal/support for 2 reasons. The first is that Junpei's damaging attacks aren't going to be doing much in this fight. He is useful for his resistance, but these things heal from fire and are resistant to most physical attacks and are in fact totally immune to strike. The other reason is Junpei has learned a defense buff spell, so if I put him on heal and support, he'll do that, and honestly I think that's more productive than him attacking in this fight. Now, speaking of productive, Mabufu costs 8 SP, which means that using that on all of these guys would actually save me SP as opposed to using individual Bufus on all of them. The reason why I'm not using Mabufu, though, is that if you don't knock down every enemy with a multi-targeting attack, you don't get a 1 more. Not only that, the only Persona I have that has Mabufu is weak to fire, and if I miss even one of them, it's probably gonna Agilao me, and that's not gonna end well. So, I'd rather be a little bit less efficient on SP, but be safer. Speaking of being safer, I actually prefer not to go for the all-out attack here and keep these enemies down for a while. Huh. Should I... You know, for now, I'll just wait. Of course, my allies are probably going to be derps and do that! Yeah, so Akihiko's going to realize the hard way that...
Strikes are useless against them.
Strikes are useless against them, like he said. But thankfully, Junpei is going to use Rakukaja and make himself a lot more useful than if he used Agi, which he did do in my practice run when I forgot to set him on heal and support on the first turn. So yeah, these things, they have quite a complex set of resistances and immunities. Immune to strike, absorb fire, weak to ice though, so at least they have a weakness. And, of course, like all bosses, immune to light and dark. They've got a good assortment of attacks. They mostly like to use Maragi and Agilao. They will try and poison you sometimes, and they have a few physical moves they can use, but they don't tend to use them that often.
The enemy's already recovered. I can do it.
Okay, yes. Thankfully, you're going for the one that's already up rather than the one that's down.
Defeat it. The enemy's already recovered.
Mitsuru's already repeating her lines. And there we go, that's why Junpei's useful in this fight. See, that resistance, that spell, as you may see later in the fight, does around 100-ish damage to people who don't resist it. So, Junpei reducing it to just like 7. Kind of ridiculous. Oh, and that thing's frozen now. So, that's going to wear off after it gets a turn, but that's going to mean that it...
Alright, good job.
I think misses its next turn and it gets critical a little more easily. Freeze isn't quite as good as Shock, the status effect from Thunder spells. I'll talk more about Thunder once we actually, the Shock status, once we actually see it really in action, because, oh man, is it a good status, but, again, we haven't quite seen it in a situation where we can really make use of it yet. We may see it here, though, if Akihiko's lucky. No, he wasn't. Yeah, every ice spell has a chance of freeze. It's like 10% for single target, 8% for multi-target, and every thunder spell has a chance for shock. Yeah, see, it recovers from freeze there, but that didn't mean that it forfeits its turn.
I couldn't defeat it.
That thing's almost down already, that's
Enemy
good.
has recovered.
Okay, yeah, there's Agilao, and there's how much it hurts for people who don't resist fire. So... good thing that Junpei does resist it. So, gonna focus on this thing first. If I get rid of one of them, this should make things a lot easier.
Good job.
Also, I'm not really worried about blowing all of our SP because we're going to be able to go back down to the first floor and get our HP fully and SP fully restored, so don't really mind that.
A wisely chosen attack.
I've been waiting for this.
Sorry, you're going to have to wait a bit longer.
Well, I guess that's one way to go.
Yes, it is. Now, hopefully I will kill this one. That's going to take some of the pressure off. Yes, good.
Don't overdo it.
Good thing about having two healers is that the healers can heal each other. Also, Rakukaja is pretty useful here. Normally, I find that single-target buff spells, as good as buffs are in this game, single-target buff spells are generally not worth bothering with unless you don't have much else that you can do. But in this case, Junpei really doesn't have much he can do, so I'm fine with him going for them. Multi-target buff spells, in other words, the ones that target your whole party, are much more useful. We'll be getting those later in the game. As for enemies, as useful as debuffs are, I usually only find single-target debuffs useful against, well, when there's only one enemy.
You exploited the enemy's weakness.
Here's our chance. Let's get him.
You know what? I'm actually going to go for it this time. I really hope that doesn't screw me over. These enemies are resistant to physical attacks. They don't take too much damage from all-out attacks, so I'm fine with relenting most of the time. Oh, no shock. I really want to show off what shock actually does, because it's really, really interesting and a very powerful effect. Especially against a certain super tough opponent. Haha! And another one down. Okay, yeah, going for Poisma. And it actually worked.
Last one.
Okay, yeah, my defense is reverted from Junpei's buff, but... should I cure Yukari or should I... No, I'm actually going to save my disc poisons for later. The next Tartarus boss uses poison a lot more frequently than this.
The enemy is vulnerable. Attack.
Here's our chance. Let's get him.
You know what? I'm actually going to do more damage by just buffering again. See, when the enemies are resistant to physical attacks, sometimes all-out attacks aren't the best option. Also, you're going to die now, aren't you? Yep, goodbye crying tables. So that wasn't too hard at all.
We did it.
Yeah, if you equip a persona that's weak to fire, that fight can go very, very badly. So I would not recommend using Mabufu on Valkyrie, because if you miss even one of them, you're going to get hit by fire. So we get some experience and also 3 vibrant cloths. That's just like the Empress Mask that we got earlier. It's just an item that's useless except for selling. But hey, more money's always useful. And Yukari is still poisoned. Wait a minute, do I have a poison cure on any of my things? I don't. I have the cause poison skill. I don't think Yukari is going to go back to the dorm if she's poisoned, though. I think it's going to cure once we reach the first floor again. So I'm just going to grab this chest and then head back. Bead chain. Always nice to have more of those, but I'd, again, prefer to save them until the end of the game unless there are absolute emergencies. They're kind of hard to come by outside of those chests. Once the antique store opens, you can get them, but it requires gems. You can't just buy them outright. I mean, you might be able to buy them outright later in the game, but there are also other items that you can never buy outright that require gems. So yes, everyone's fully healed now, and nobody's tired or anything. Now, while I'm here, I'm actually going to go and accept the next rare shadow request, because otherwise the rare shadows that I find, and I found a few of them during my practice attempts, otherwise they're not going to drop the medal that Elizabeth wants. So let's go ahead and check. Okay, yeah, steel medal. I'll accept that. That spiked bat might be useful too. That's another one of the joke weapons. And you can probably guess who it's for. Though anyway, now that we've just defeated a boss, I think we should probably save. Because that fight actually went pretty well. So, I'll see you when we go back into Tartarus again, and we're actually going to be going fairly deep in this time, just like last time. I'm running quite behind schedule when it comes to getting to the next block, so If I want to complete that old document request, I'm going to have to hurry things up. I'm also probably going to have to grind a bit, but that's going to be off camera.